Jordan, Pippen and Rodman are the most iconic trio of all time, but are they the best? Today in this video, we talk about the best trios and best big threes of all time. We have 10 big threes of all time, and we're going to be ranking them from best to worst. The first big three of the video, coming in 10th spot, we have got the Lakers from the early 2000s with Shaq, Kobe and Rick Fox. Now quickly, Rick Fox was a very good player, but honestly I don't really think this is a big three. We just had to get one more in there because there really isn't that many great big threes of all time, as back in the day it was just really a one man carrying the show. Like Wilt Chamberlain doesn't have a big three, but yeah, so this is going to be in last spot. Shaq and Kobe, it's really the big duo. Shaq and Kobe won 3 in a row together, and then yeah, and it's last mainly because of chemistry. Like they didn't like each other and it hurt them as they lost a final series in 2004 against the Pistons that they really should have won. The 2000s Celtics. Now the 2000s Celtics was made up of Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce and Allen. Now the reason why these guys are down in 9th is they only won one championship. They could have been together longer, but injuries occurred to Pierce and then later on with other players on the team, and they're only able to win one championship, as they should have won the 2009 and potentially even 2010 NBA Finals, but injuries held them back and they weren't able to make through on that promise. As yeah, so it was a very good, I would say it was still better than the big three that we just talked about with the Lakers one, as it wasn't really a big three and chemistry was a big issue. But yeah, so you got Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce and Ray Allen, 3 extremely good players. Ray Allen, green light from beyond 3-point range. Paul Pierce could rival Kobe Bryant and the likes, and Kevin Garnett with his fierce leadership and just an incredible player. The Bad Boy Pistons. Now the Bad Boy Pistons were, obviously, as the name says, they played dirty basketball. They weren't really respected at the time, but they did win 2 championships in a row for the Detroit Pistons, winning their first and only championships at that point. Yeah, so you got to give them a little bit of respect for that. But they just really played bully ball the entire time, and the trio consisted of Isaiah Thomas, Bill Laimbeer and Joe DeMars. Now Bill Laimbeer was the big center, that he was probably one of the main problems. Joe DeMars, again, that they were just bully ball players, but they were very, very successful. Isaiah Thomas was actually a really skilled and talented point guard, and he gets overlooked for the reason of him being on the Bad Boy Pistons team. He is definitely the best player on that side, and he's one of the better point guards of all time. Just left a little bit of respect he lost for playing that style of basketball. The Bad Boy Pistons proved that dirty tactics can work and do work in the modern sport of basketball. And now we have the Miami Heat of the 2012 era. Now this team was meant to be one of the best big threes of all time, and it consisted of LeBron James, Dwayne Wade and Bosh. Now these 3 absolutely would dominate. They were meant to dominate, but chemistry was a real problem from them at the start. They made it to 4 finals in all the years, and they won 2 of them. Now it could have been 3 if LeBron James didn't play terrible against the Dallas Mavericks and pretty much gave them the title. Yeah, so these guys really, the chemistry was really a big problem between the 3 of them, and LeBron wanted out and he wanted to go back to Cleveland by their 4 years. And yeah, it's just that they could have been the best big 3 of all time, but they weren't able to meet the expectations. Now we have the Showtime Lakers. Now, the Showtime Lakers consisted of Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and James Worthy. Now, the problem with this big 3 was not a lot, but the problems that lied was it was Magic and Kareem at the start, then Kareem was leaving his prime, and that's when James Worthy came in. So when it was the 3 of them, Kareem was out of his prime and not playing as well as he was before, meaning that this trio never played together when they were all in their primes. James Worthy was a young rookie at the start, I believe. Was he traded? I actually don't know that. Let me know in the comment section down below. It was James Worthy recruited or traded when he joined LA. But none of them got to play with each other in their primes, and it really hurt them on the list, although they did win 3 more championships with James Worthy. Now we have the Celtics from the 60s. The Celtics from the 60s was Bill Russell, Bob Cousy, Bill Sharman. Now, I was thinking about adding Sam Jones over Bill Sharman, but I couldn't because Bill Sharman at that point was the best shooter to ever live, and yeah, he was probably the 3rd piece in that team. But it was definitely Bill Russell and Bob Cousy were definitely the 2. The first option being Bill, and then yeah, Cousy as the second. not options, sorry, just best players on the team, because Bill Russell wasn't an option offensively at all. He was just the defensive anchor, and it was what that team really needed. And then they had all the scorers around it. And later on, they would have John Havlicek, but at this point, he was just a rookie, so I couldn't put him in there. He would be in a later Celtics team, which actually would not be on this list. So yeah, but he was in that more Kareem era, when Kareem was a rookie, and that's when he was really good. So for that reason, he can't be in this list. But yeah, there's not much else you really need to say about this team. They won 11 championships. Now you might be like, well, that has to make them number one, but I argued that they're not really a big three, and that the era, there was no other really good dominant teams. It was just them v Wilt Chamberlain pretty much, and they were obviously going to win that every single time. So yeah, but to be said, across all of the championships, there was only 9 points across every single championship win that separated them, which is pretty ridiculous. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. It just shows that one shot could have changed everything, but there it is, and that's where I think the 1960s Celtics are on this list. And now we have the icons. We've got Jordan, Pippen, and Rodman. Now, before Rodman even came into the team, they had already won 3 championships, but the addition of Dennis Rodman, and of course Jordan returning from his first retirement, led them to 3 more titles. Now, Rodman never really spoke to Scottie and Michael pretty much ever, and it just came out recently that Scottie Pippen actually never liked Michael, and Scottie Pippen said some outrageous statements and a lot of things. If you want to look into that, you can, but he's lost the plot, Scottie Pippen. Yeah, there's just not... They were able to stick together. Unlike Shaq and Kobe, they were able to stick together, make it work, and win 6 championships. But yeah, Scottie Pippen wanted more praise than what he got. But then we saw when he left and played with the Trailblazers, when he was the same age as Jordan was in 1998, they were terrible. And he was meant to be their main man and carry them to a title, and he was just absolutely terrible. For that reason, it was really just a Jordan show. Rodman's probably the second best player out of the 3. Pippen's highly overrated. And yeah, so this is where they rank, as I think the big 3 is pretty weak, and it's just because they have Michael Jordan on the team. And now we have the Golden State Warriors from the latest era that just came by, with Curry, Klay Thompson, and Kevin Durant. So obviously an absolute dream team. Never before this have there ever been 2 MVP players playing with each other in their prime. That was a first that had never happened before, and with the addition of Klay Thompson, it just can't get much better than that. Also, Draymond Green was also extremely good in this era. He's definitely dropped off and not as good anymore, but he was definitely a solid 4th. And this team, man, they won championships, and they were able to put through on the promise, but Kevin Durant left and ended the era, and Klay Thompson also getting injured, and it ended an era. But they're coming back this season, and the Golden State Warriors look very, very good. They're already the best team in the league, and they haven't even got Klay Thompson back yet, so no Warrior fan would have ever predicted that. But yeah, Kevin Durant winning the 2 finals MVPs for that. They also had Andre Iguodala, who was the finals MVP in the first one they won too, so they just had stacks of really good players, and I think this is one of the most complete rosters we've ever seen, but not as complete as the next 2 we're going to mention. And now we've got the Spurs. So they're one of the best American teams of all time throughout all of sports. They never missed the playoffs for about a 20-year span. So that right there is a dynasty, and that was consisted of Duncan, Manu, and Parker. Now, they weren't much to watch. They weren't much to look at, but they got the job done. They were the first real team to start resting players for an extended period of time, and just to make sure they got to the finals. And they barely ever disappointed. I think they won 5. Well, with Tim Duncan, they won 5 championships, and that stretched right on in the Heat era. So yeah, they were just an extremely good dynasty. Tim Duncan he's one of the top 10 best players of all time. And then you've got guys like Manu and Parker to back him up with their expert levels of shooting, and this just is an all-round great team. And yeah, so yeah, obviously boring style worked. 5 championships, definitely are the second best big 3 of all time. And now the best big 3 of all time. Some of you guys probably already know this. A lot of you guys may not know this, may be unaware of how good of this big 3 actually was. But of course, it's the Celtics from the 80s with Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish. Now, this was just probably the best roster of all time. You've got Larry Bird, the best shooter of all time, an incredible playmaker. You've got Kevin an incredible power forward, one of the best. And you've got Robert Parrish, who was just an incredible third option for them. And then you've got players like Bill Walton coming off the bench. This team was absolutely ridiculous. They won multiple championships, and with Larry Bird helping them all the way through. He won 3 MVPs in a row. This man was probably one of the best, if not the best player in the 80s. And of course, the Celtics have to rank here. And of course, it's actually quite impressive. The Celtics have got 3 teams in this list. They've got from the 2000s, the 60s, and the 80s. So they're able to build a championship dynasty every 20 years, which is incredible, which means they're due for one in this decade, and I think they can probably do it with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown coming up through the ranks. And Schroeder, oh my goodness, did you see that game? He dropped 37 points against Milwaukee yesterday. That was incredible. Yeah, so we'll see if they can build a dynasty to continue this, but yeah, so it's just, there's not much you need to say about them. It's crazy. Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish. There's so many stories with Larry Bird, Larry Legend. Yeah, just what a great team they proved to be, winning. I don't know how many championships they won. Comment that down below again. Sorry about that. But yeah, they were just an incredible pairing, especially Bird and McHale. Kevin McHale, the story where Kevin McHale drops 57 points. Best all-time scoring record for the Celtics in one game, and then Larry Bird 2 weeks later breaks it. Like, it's ridiculous. I'm SMK, and that's my channel. If you like videos like this, make sure to hit the like and subscribe. It really helps me out and lets me know what kind of videos you like to see. Comment down below as well, new videos you want to see, players you want to know more about, just random things that you would want to see in a video. And until next time, keep hooping.